Okay, I'll get started. Thank you all for coming to hear about Drupal CMS today. Who here has heard of Drupal CMS? Yeah, great. So my name, for those of you who I have not met, I'm Suzanne Dergacheva. I'm the co-founder of EvolveDrupal. I used to come to Toronto doing Drupal trainings pretty often, and now that training program has grown into this. It's exciting to see so many people here. Awesome. Yeah, so by day I work at EvolveDrupal, and by night I am sometimes by night, I'm the marketing lead for the Promote Drupal initiative, but also Drupal CMS. I'm on the leadership team. It's been a really fun project. And for those of you who have maybe heard of Starshot, Drupal CMS, you know that this exists. The vision for this project is to make Drupal accessible to everyone, to more people, to empower marketers, to empower content editors to use what is already this really powerful thing that is Drupal, and to enable them to create great experiences without relying on developers. Now that's the vision for the product Drupal CMS, but the bigger vision for Drupal is just to get more people using Drupal. We want more marketers, more students learning Drupal, more content editors who have a side project, more developers who want to, build a site for their friend over the weekend. Just like everybody should just be using Drupal more. And I know a lot of organizations here use many CMSs. We want you to be able to use Drupal for more of your projects. And we've had a problem in Drupal that experts love Drupal. So the more you use it, the more you love it. Like as a developer, it's just this great tool that you know and love. But for beginners, it's hard. There's this thing where you set up your first site, and there's this friction. It takes time. You have a lot to learn. And this is what we've been trying to overcome for years. And so the goal of Drupal CMS is to really help us finally get there. So the pattern is that, the current model where we're all using Drupal core, Drupal has to be configured by an expert to make it easy to use. I think a lot of us here, maybe some of us are developers. You might have been put into this situation where you're saying, you got to set up the website so that it's easy for the end user to go in there and create content. And that takes some work to make Drupal really easy to use for the end user. It's possible for Drupal to be easy to use, but it's not so by default. We have to think about the roles and the permissions and design that experience. And so we can take Drupal core currently and get to our finished site. But the idea behind Drupal CMS is that it gives us a shortcut. It gives us these smart defaults. It gives us best practices that are built in, and it just helps us build faster. It helps us already have out of the box something that is easy to use. And so in both of these cases, you're starting with Drupal core. You start with Drupal core, you start with Drupal CMS. In both cases, you're building off of the same code base. And so what Drupal CMS actually is like a wrapping or a package. It's a product that makes Drupal core easier. And some of the work that I've been helping with in conjunction with the UX team for Drupal CMS is to actually ask people what they want. So we've been talking to marketers, we've been talking to editors, we've been doing these user interviews to get more insight. So I have some quotes up that I'm going to share today from anonymous marketers, anonymous people we were able to speak to. And they're looking for something that makes them more independent. And so we actually got some real specifics about what content editors and what marketers are looking for. And there are some ways that Drupal CMS is already going to be improving their workflows, improving how they work. So I'll start by sharing some of that. So first off, it makes the setup easy. We call it an installer, but actually the name that I like to use is more like the setup, because with Drupal CMS you're not, it's not so much an install process, it's just helping you set up your Drupal site with the content and the features that you need. So there's this setup process that you run through where you're actually just being prompted to tell the interface, what are you trying to build? It's more friendly. It's not designed to be like a whole sea of checkboxes, but rather a process that feels collaborative. There's some other really specific things that I think have been long-standing issues with content editors that now are easy with Drupal CMS. So things like media management. Right out of the box, you have responsive images, you have image styles, which a lot of us really like in Drupal, but they're built right into the WYSIWYG editor. So you just have those kind of tools and flexibility much more at your fingertips. Analytics, this is something that my team worked on. Doesn't look very complicated. You put in your Google Analytics tracking code, but hey, you can do this right out of the box. No need to add anything else. The module's already installed, and your data privacy settings are already set up, so you don't have to configure this. It happens automatically. And then something coming down the line that's not going to be ready in the first version of Drupal CMS, but that's going to be really key to its success, is the experience builder. So this is a no-code solution for Drupal. And any designers in the room? No. Anyone in the room who doesn't like to raise their hand? Yeah, so if you are a designer, or maybe you're not a designer, but you work with designers and they like to send you links to their Figma files, you might see that the Experience Builder looks a bit like Figma. It's a tool that helps you design what your site is actually going to look like and what your pages are going to feel like right through the UI. So there's a lot of these things that are features of Drupal CMS that kind of bring it up to par with the expectations of marketers and content editors. And way more than what I've described here. SEO, integrations, a lot more in the works, and you can look online for like the list of tracks, the list of recipes that are being created that can give you a lot more detail. But a lot of these things kind of bring it up to par with what we expect from a modern CMS. And we might be looking at some competitors, like, how does this compare to like a page building tool like a Wix or a Squarespace or something that just allows you to build content more easily. And we might say, okay, that's great. It's great that Drupal is easy to use, feels easy to use out of the box, and gives us that kind of content flexibility in that marketer-first experience. But what actually puts Drupal CMS ahead of those? Like, what are the differentiators? How does it set itself apart? And my answer is that actually a lot of it is just the stuff that Drupal has always done well. So if we're comparing Drupal CMS to a lot of those other tools, they don't have the power of Drupal or the scalability of Drupal behind them. And so what a lot of people we actually talk to already feel is that Drupal is a really powerful platform, that it already is, enterprise level and has all these great attributes like security and accessibility and scalability. I was working on my slides right to the last minute. So, yes, Drupal is great for enterprise. And I'm just gonna. Can I restart? Because I think it just didn't pick up my final edits to the slide. Can I restart the presentation? Sorry. Oh, I see. It's just another screen.
You want to refresh it? Or just restart it?
I think just restart it. Awesome. Thank you. So those are some things that just, put Drupal CMS ahead of some of those competitors. And then on top of that, we have things like...
Oops.
It's okay, I'll just go back.
Yeah.
We have things like the AI tools that have been added to Drupal CMS. So if you saw the Dries note back in from DrupalCon Barcelona, you would have seen some really demo of Drupal's AI capability, Drupal CMS AI capabilities. And it's not about creating content with AI. It's not about, some of the things that you might have expected. I think when people think about AI and Drupal, they think about the content side of Drupal, the content authoring. The AI tools that were built for Drupal CMS are really more about helping accelerate site building. So instead of somebody who's put into the situation of setting up their site to be focusing on migrating content or setting up their content types, they can focus more on content strategy and their digital strategy and let the AI help with some of those more, time-consuming tasks, like, oh, I want to adapt my content types to fit this new taxonomy I'm trying to build. So AI-assisted site building is part of what's being created for Drupal CMS, and it's a differentiator because a lot of other platforms, they provide AI, they list it as one of the features, but it tends to be more around the content and less about actually building out your site. And so finally, Drupal CMS, what we heard when we talked to content editors and marketers is that there's still friction to using Drupal. So even despite all the features a CMS might be offering, oftentimes you're picking a CMS not based on it being the best CMS for the job, the best technology for the job, but rather because it's the thing that's sort of like easy to use. Like the team already knows the CMS, or it's the CMS that was already being used. So it was just there, or like there was a good demo. Like these are the types of reasons why people end up making these decisions. And so we need to actually remove friction so that it's just more accessible and more available and in people's hands immediately. And so one thing we heard is that, yeah, Drupal community is great, but like having more documentation that's actually adapted to the needs of marketers and content folks. Like this is what's missing. So Drupal CMS initiative has an actual roadmap for building out documentation in a more concerted effort. So although Drupal's an open source project and documentation is abundant, it's not always packaged in a way that's easy to understand, like where do I start, where do I stop, what do I need to know, and who is this for? And so documentation is being written specifically for the project in a more managed way. And so this should be rolled out along with the CMS itself when it's released. And then a trial experience is also being designed. So let's say you have a project and you want to help people, start kicking the tires of Drupal CMS, seeing how it works. Maybe you want to share it with your colleagues. Maybe you actually just want to start building and you don't want to, like, installing Drupal to get in the way. You don't want the infrastructure to get in the way. So the trial experience will make it easy. From Drupal.org, you're exploring your options, you click, you get into an environment where you have Drupal CMS set up, and you can export it and then take it with you if you want to actually move what you've built elsewhere. So what's next in terms of the actual work that we're doing on marketing and UX for Drupal CMS? We're continuing on with the user research, so we're doing benchmarking now with a lot of other platforms, competitors. There's about 10 that we're looking at, just to see how do they do things based on about 20 to 30 common tasks that we've identified that we want to make easy for marketers and content editors. So we're looking at what do those other platforms do and what are patterns that we can emulate. And that will lead into some usability testing specifically for the designs that have been created. And a lot of this work is much more UX driven than we've seen in the past with Drupal. There's a UX team for Drupal CMS, and they're directing a lot of the decisions that are being made, which is, I think, fantastic. And then also what's coming up is the launch of Drupal CMS, the first version, which is going to be available in January. There's going to be launch parties, hopefully one here in Toronto. I heard rumblings about this. Try and do it in Montreal. It's going to be a big deal, big splash. In the meantime, there's a release candidate that's going to be released on Monday. There's actually going to be a DrupalCon in Singapore next week, and as part of that, this release candidate is going to be made public. So check out Drupal.org on Monday. You'll see the link there to the release candidate, and you can check it out. And you can also see a lot more demos if you watch that big Dries note that will be made as part of that conference. So thanks for coming. I hope I have a few minutes for questions. I'd love to hear your reactions. If you're a marketer, I'd love to hear you say, like, I actually just want Drupal CMS to do this. So open up the floor to share any feedback or questions you might have.
First, Suzanne, I'd just like to say thank you for putting all this together. I have a question I don't know if you can answer, which is the benchmarking that you guys are going to be putting so much effort into doing, these 20 to 30 or so details or use cases. Is that something you guys are doing internally to help steer what you recommend to your clients, or is that something you might be sharing with the community?
Oh, it's totally public, so you can help with the benchmarking. It's an Airtable, and I should have put a link in my slides.
I was just going to ask, how can people become involved?
How can you become involved? I should make like a bit.ly link or something and put it up on the screen. But yeah, if you come to me afterwards, I can totally just give you the link and share it with you that way. Or if you really want to get involved, on the Drupal Slack, there's a Starshot channel, there's a UX channel. We've shared this there just for benchmarking. If you're on the Drupal Slack, you should be able to find this link.
Hello, I actually have two questions. So the first question is about the first time new to Drupal experience. I remember like way back in the days, I started my first WordPress site, I went on WordPress.com, I signed up, and I had my first website live on an actual server before I even knew what is a CMS or what PHP is. As far as I know, the current Drupal experience is running on local in the browser. So I'm just wondering, is there any plan for an easy WordPress.com like experience that I sign up and I have a live site going that runs Drupal? Yeah, so the trial experience the goal of it is to be that, but not on one, like WordPress.com is owned by one company. It's Automatic runs WordPress.com, so it's not going to be all owned by a single company or by the Drupal Association itself. It'll be, partners and different folks who are running that. There was an experiment to build a trial experience in the browser with WebAssembly, which was really exciting. That's actually how I got involved in Drupal CMS. Is somebody showed me the WordPress playground that exists and said, "Oh, we're going to try and create this for Drupal." There were some issues with it, and I found to put a ton of work into it, but I think there's some technical limitations, and so the idea is that it'll be a hosted experience, but different options you'll have. Thank you. Actually, I have a very quick second question. Can you quickly talk about the name Drupal CMS itself? Oh, yeah. Great question. So, Drupal CMS, at first I thought Drupal CMS, but Drupal is a CMS. And people already talk about their CMSs, like I know, we work with lots of universities and they'll say, oh, this is our Drupal CMS that we run at U of T or that we run at McGill.
says that this might be a bit confusing. But then we did some market research with our target audience, which are marketers, content folks, and we said, okay, if we present this to you, Drupal CMS, Drupal core, what do these words mean to you? And when we compared it against other kind of names, like we tested it with Drupal Spark and Drupal Plus and like some other ideas, and it really seemed like the clearest thing for people is like, this is a CMS, and so it's a product for Drupal, and it'll take a bit of a shift in people who are already using it. But eventually, I think people will just start using the word Drupal to mean Drupal CMS, and we might start using the word Drupal core more to describe the core of Drupal that is not Drupal CMS. But we'll see how things shift, and we did do the user research, and it really helped a lot of us on the team kind of be comfortable with that decision. Yes, Matt.
Thank you for the presentation. So the experience builder is like the feature I'm most excited about for Drupal CMS. Since you've had experience using it, can you like maybe go a little bit more in depth about what I should expect there for my content managers?
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I was like, went through it very fast. So experience builder, it's exciting because it's a tool that's built in React. And that means, I think the most exciting thing for me when I've seen a demo of it is just the speed. So who here has used paragraphs? A lot of people use paragraphs. Yeah, you like to raise your hands, it's good. And layout builder, has anyone used layout builder? And a lot of people have probably also used something else, like WordPress, maybe Elementor, you use Gutenberg or tried other things. So all of these things, it's like, you're assembling a page of content, right? And the typical issue with Drupal, whenever we have these page building tools, is that there's a lot of clicks that you need to do. And so it feels slow because you have to click a lot, like you have a lot of options, right? Drupal's always like, it's not just adding text to a page. You gotta pick what section you're adding it to, you get to design the section, you get to pull in the content, then you have settings maybe for the content, like it's just a lot of clicks, and every click kind of, you die a little bit inside because it takes so long. And so the really exciting thing I find with the Experience Builder is just that the clicks are fast. It's built in React, it's like instant. It feels like, wow, I'm just building. And then it is designed more to be like something that feels frictionless, like you don't have as much, you have a lot more options over what shows up there, and then you're able to design on top of it too. So eventually you won't just have the ability to place content on the page, but you're also like styling things and actually layering styles on top of your content in a way that will feel comfortable for people who have some experience with things like Figma. So there's a lot of layers to it. It's not just going to be one thing. It's like going to be a tool that's used for building pages, but also for designing your whole site. And I think, separate from Drupal CMS, we'll see this tool really take off. I'm excited by the user experience improvements and especially the speed. And I think when we think about like page building tools, and I don't know, I did a lot of usability testing with different tools, like the ones I was showing earlier, like Wix, Squarespace, like let's just see how these work. And I get to think like, oh, they're all kind of the same. But I think with Drupal, the real differentiator is that you're not just building a page of content. Like with Drupal, you go to add something to the page and you can place in a view, and you can place in all of your dynamic content, and you can add your web forms, and then you can control what your web form does depending on what page. Like you just have so much more flexibility when you're putting together components in Drupal, and that's the exciting part. Yeah, so I'm so glad you all came and excited for the enthusiasm about Drupal CMS and excited to party with you on January 15th when we have the first launch. So thanks for coming.